Hello, everyone, and welcome to Preemie Chats, a space where we connect, learn, and share stories about the world of prematurity. I'm Leah Whitehead. I'm the proud mom of a preemie, and I'm a former journalist, and I'm so honored to be your host here today and to have you joining us. Preemie Chats is brought to you by the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. It's also well known as CPBF. It's a parent-led charitable organization dedicated to supporting families, advocating for the needs of premature babies, and providing the latest information and resources to help parents and caregivers navigate this journey. So whether you're a parent, a healthcare professional, researcher, or someone interested in learning more about preterm birth, you're in the right place. Together, we are building a supportive community where stories are shared, questions are answered, new evidence is explored, and most importantly, no one feels alone. Be sure to visit our website. It's there on the screen, canadianpreemies.org, and there you will find helpful resources, our latest projects, and a community of people who want to see our little ones thrive. If you're watching live today, I'd invite you to please join the conversation. Share your questions and comments in the chat, and we'll address them during today's episode. If you're watching a recorded session, welcome, and you can still connect with us through our website. It's through meaningful discussions like the one that we're about to have, where we advance practice and grow together. And it's always very interesting to see where our audience is coming from. So please let us know where you're watching from and share your personal experiences in the world of prematurity. So you probably know that we have a special day coming up this Sunday. It is Father's Day. So first of all, happy Father's Day early to all of our preemie dads out there who are either in NICU now or who are at home this Sunday. In honor of Father's Day, we have a great program lined up today with three very special dads who have bravely offered to share their stories with us. As always, whenever a family shares their journey with prematurity, it is a tremendous gift for all listeners. So thank you, first of all, to our dads who are sharing with us today. We're going to be speaking with three dads: Spiro Darris, whose preemie son was born 16 years ago, when there seemed to be fewer dads in the NICU. Kevin Nataraja will talk about his journey as the father of the world's most premature twins, and Jacob Lewis, a preemie dad who is also the winner of season 4 of Canada's Got Talent. He'll tell us about the challenges he faced when his twins were born. So stay with us. Please interact, ask questions, share your experiences, and celebrate the role of fathers in NICU and beyond. Our first guest today is someone many Canadians will instantly recognize, and that is Jacob Lewis, singer, songwriter, and newly crowned season 4 winner of Canada's Got Talent. But behind the spotlight is a powerful personal story. Jacob is also a proud dad to twin boys born at just 29 weeks and six days. Their NICU journey lasted 60 days, and it changed everything. Jacob shares that while he knew the road ahead would be tough, he wasn't fully prepared for just how overwhelming and emotional it would be in being a preemie dad. He quickly realized how crucial it is to show up, not just for his boys, but also for his wife. We are honored to welcome Jacob here with us today and to hear more of his journey. Welcome, Jacob. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me very much. It's a special topic to get in the opportunity to speak, especially in the Father's Day edition, about preemie children and about the experience that we went through, and on my side of things, how I helped navigate through that for my wife, for my children, and also help them learn and be the dad for the first time. So it was a bit challenging at times.
I'm going to give you the floor, Jacob. And when you're wrapping up, just give me the nod or the cue, and I'll come back on and we'll ask some questions.
Excellent. Thank you. So, hello, my name is Jacob Lewis. I'm from Newfoundland, and I'm a husband and I'm a father of twin boys, Luke and Levi, who were born at 29 weeks and 6 days. This past year now, there's been some things come up in my life where I've done a lot of reflecting, and there's been a lot of storytelling, a lot of chats about how that kind of looked for us at that time. And I really start to think back, and I reflected on it so much. It's very easy for me to come on here and just give you the story because I just want to let you know. When my kids were born, social media was the big thing, and it still kind of is, and it's only gotten bigger. But then, you make that social media post, and you're like, oh, kids are born, happy, healthy, mom is healthy, and so on. Now, we knew there was a NICU stay ahead of us. The kids were born really early. But then shortly after that, things took a turn in a different dramatic direction and made things a lot more challenging. Being there to support my wife was a major part of that. She needed support in the utmost time that I could have ever imagined. One thing that I noticed about being a dad is when the doctors and the nurses come in, they gravitate to mom. And that's what I would have expected. But sometimes when you're a dad, that you really want to be involved and stuff, you want to be in the picture and you want to be talked to and you want to be this and you want to be involved in a lot of the talk as well. But ultimately, at that moment, I really realized that I needed to actively listen to what's going on. My wife has so much going on with her at the time. There's so much going on with my kids at the time. I have to be the support for her. I have to be the support for my children. I'll never forget the first time we walked in and saw their little tiny hut. And if you're a preemie parent out there, you know that little tiny hut we're talking about for the most part. The kids are kind of in there if they're really small and they're being warm and toasty. And I remember we came in the night times when we were reading stories and this and that. And did it help? We like to think that it did in some retrospect. And looking back at some of the children's books, it really gives you a different idea on the little things that could be such of importance as you navigate through this. I'm a very positive person. And it was really hard to share the positivity throughout that entire scene. But I had to. I looked at everything that I could to bring some sort of light to that. Now, I know every preemie parent probably does this, and it scares the living life out of me when I was doing it. But I found myself on Google all hours when I wasn't there or if I was home for a few minutes, and that can be scary. There are moments, though, upon those, you can find some positive stuff, and that did help lift me up to be able to help lift up my wife, to be there. And the utmost importance is being there, asking the questions, actively listening to what people have to say, what the doctors have to say, the nurses have to say, surgeons have to say if you're in that situation, and just trying to absorb as much as you can. One of my sons was going through multiple brain bleeds at the time, and we were developing. He was developing hydrocephalus and all the things, and it was a crazy time to kind of experience. But we were asking questions, constantly trying to see what we could do better. And one of the things that I learned during this stay, which has stuck with me for the rest, since then, and it's going to stick with me for the rest of my life because I think it was so valuable. Sometimes when I was meeting a doctor or a nurse, sometimes the real bluntness of the conversation can take you back a little bit. And hearing the truth sometimes really, 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 really hurts. So there's a lot of times I was like, I don't know, I'm not a fan of this doctor, not a fan of this nurse, or so on. But then I was very quickly directed to understand that they were helping us, and they were helping us grow as parents. They were helping us grow as parents of preemie children. And they were helping us understand of what the road was ahead. Now, the thing that I've found about the first impression, and then you start realizing what's happening, and then I'm like, these doctors and these nurses are the absolute best. And then I was really thinking, I'm like, and just go back to it. The second, how can I say this and make it make sense? The doctors and the nurses that sometimes had me taken back a little bit were the ones that I have the most up forth respect for now. I have respect for all of them. They do a wonderful job. But those have passed along great knowledge and helped us navigate through that journey amazingly. I'll never forget when a doctor mentioned us because we weren't sure what life looked like for my son. And he broke it down and he talked about computers. He said a $6,000 computer and a $200 computer, they got their differences, but it's only as valuable as the information that's downloaded on it. So with a child that was having a severe brain injury, that doctor that in the very beginning had me taken back quite a bit, I gravitated to that doctor so much because that moment, that conversation gave me that positivity to help navigate through this. And being there for my wife ultimately, I think, was the biggest role that I could have had. Mom takes the brunt of everything, and moms are fabulous. They're strong. There's not much you can really say other than moms are absolutely amazing. But dads have a huge part. Huge part. I remember nurses talking to me and saying, and even over the last few years, saying that there's so much scientific evidence showing that when dads are in the picture, kids excel and they grow up to obviously just excel. That time in the NICU was scary. There were times that things are hitting you and you get this overwhelming sense of feeling that you don't know how you're supposed to react. Is this what life is going to look like? Is that what life is going to look like? Am I going to have to change a career? Is my wife going to have to change a career? We have bills to pay. And all this stuff is the things that I didn't really want to think about at the time, but I had to think about at the time because mom is solely focused on herself and the children. And that's what I wanted. But I needed to be there to support mom, support our children. And that could have meant a career change for me. And ultimately, it did make a career change for me. I was working on an oil rig, and then I took a job in the office. I still think no one applied for it. That's luckily enough how I got it. But all those things really helped me be in the picture more with my children. I can't say enough about the importance of being there to be able to help your spouse, to help your children, and actively listen. That's been the ultimate thing that I've learned from this experience is I looked at what I was being told the outcome could be is not what the outcome might be. We made sure our children had whatever support they needed, and that ultimately comes down to effort and being there. And I cannot stress the importance of dad being there at these times because I don't know if people really know how important that it is. But I certainly know now looking back and after taking the knowledge from those doctors and those nurses have passed along to us, I know our NICU experience was hard and most people's NICU experiences are very hard. But I tried to gravitate to what was positive was coming out of that. Those nurses and those doctors in there really paved the way for us to be great parents. Just letting, I can't even imagine now if I had a child for the first time and then 2 days later we were leaving the hospital with them. I wouldn't have had a clue what to do. I would have still been there, the same support. But ultimately, the NICU helped us navigate the road that we had coming ahead for us. My 2 kids are 5 years old now, and they're doing absolutely amazing. But that doesn't come without the support from the doctors, the nurses, my wife being the nurturing mother that she is, and it also doesn't come without the support of Dad being there. That is an important piece that I don't know if everyone realizes how much it is important. You don't even have to be talking. It's just being there. My wife wanted to sit down and we'd have a coffee together, or we might have a coffee and we might not say 2 words, but she wasn't alone. And to be honest, that we weren't married at this time, but I know we were having children and we were looking to get married and so on. And sometimes things happen where you have kids before you're married, and that's absolutely fine. But it helped bring us so much closer together to know that that was a very challenging time, and we overcame that. And I just want you to know, as a dad, being there in the NICU can get overwhelming. I don't know how many times you're washing your hands. You come to realize that the phone is probably one of the dirtiest things you could ever have in your hands. So I can remember, like, we'd be putting that in a Ziploc bag or leaving it outside somewhere, and you're scrubbing your hands 100 times a day, and then you're coming home, and then you're having signs up in your house for, if people did come over, make sure you wash your hands. And this is pre-COVID, so we were really on that train, which a few months later, COVID happened, which didn't make it any easier on us. But really, just being there as a dad is really important. Showing the support for your wife, showing the support for your children, actively listening. That, I cannot stress enough, was the most important way of us navigating through this, and ultimately how I could help. Being positive, trying to lift my wife up. I remember one of the most traumatic news that we got when a lot of things were happening with my son Luke. We got back to the room that my wife was staying in, and the cleaner was there cleaning our room at the moment, and my wife broke down. I'll never forget the look on the cleaner's face as she had looked at us, and she was heartbroken. And my wife was solely blaming herself for what was happening with our children. That was such an eerie feeling. But I had to support her and say, this is not your fault. Things can happen. I had to support her. I had to comfort her. Be a dad to my children, be a partner to my now wife, and show her that I'm with her every step of the way. She was not alone. My kids are doing great. Without everything from the NICU, without the support from all those that were involved there. And it was even from an early age, because if you're having twins, there's a good chance you might end up there. And if you're not having twins, well, there's a chance that you still could end up in there. You don't really know. But I'm confident in saying that it takes a special nurse to be a NICU nurse. And they are among the best. And that I truly believe. I would love to hear if anyone got any questions pertaining to, like, my experience of what I felt. Ultimately, for me, it was the real thing about trying to bring some positive into a real dark time, which I think in some way did help how my wife and how my kids, how we all kind of grew as a family, and how my kids overcame a lot of obstacles that were in their lives. Are there any questions for me?
You do have some questions, Jacob. Thank you for sharing, and for sharing so honestly. And, I think when I think back to our time in NICU, it really was the positivity of my husband as well that allowed us to process, I guess, our journey differently than if it had been just me there alone. We have one question here from Sandy, who said, What thing could a NICU nurse have done to help a preemie dad?
One thing that I would say probably a NICU nurse could have done to have helped me, because it wasn't all the time, but there are some times when you're having very important discussions that everything goes to mom, and mom is overwhelmed. Mom is the caregiver. Mom is going through all these changes in her body and in her life right now, and stressed out beyond can imagine. And don't get me wrong, dad is stressed out too. But maybe trying to include dad in that conversation more and know that dads are really involved. And you know what? I still struggle with that sometimes when my kids are visiting the hospital or so on. Like, it's sometimes dad is not really the one that's communicated to. It's always mom. But I still try to look at that same approach as nurses and doctors are going to gravitate to the mother of the children, and I totally get that. But sometimes just including dad into that conversation a little bit more, even with a little tiny bit of eye contact, just to know that dad is not left out. Things like that really help encourage. I know it would have encouraged myself, and it still does every now and then when a doctor or a nurse makes eye contact with me. It really gets me engaged more. It gets me realize that, okay, I'm in the picture. They don't feel like that I'm just a piece of furniture in the room.
Hmm. We have another question from Juliet. And and you may have already answered this, but she said, in your view, in what way should things have been done differently for you to engage uh, as a dad for your preemie infants in NICU?
I don't know really what would have been done different as such. I'm a person that likes to ask a lot of questions. So I know for me, if I'm not really included in the conversation, at some point when there's a break, I'm going to try to include myself. So I think if I'm a very vocal person, so I don't mind speaking and asking questions and so on. But I do think if you're not that vocal person and you're waiting for someone to talk to you, I do think that could be challenging. So you might have to just kind of try to wedge your question in there somewhere and just don't hold on to it, because if you hold on to a question that you're the nurse or the doctor has gone away and you've had this question and you didn't ask it, it could be a very important piece.
Hmm. I have a question about after NICU. So you spent your time there, you're home. You said COVID happened right after, which is an added complication. But just how do you think NICU changed your family dynamic and coming home, your parenting style, your family, really? What changes did you see that maybe wouldn't have happened if your journey had been more straightforward?
The NICU really helped us understand how to be parents. And that might sound so silly, but like seeing the nurses help wash your children and like all this stuff that they make look so easy, and then you do it for the first time with a baby that's not much bigger than this, and you're nervous and you don't know what to do, and then the nurse comes over, and that's some of the things that I really took the most, because as though sometimes you probably weren't engaged in a whole lot of conversations, and there were a lot of conversations that I personally was. Not saying that there was all conversations that I was excluded from, but sometimes you felt like you were a little bit more of a bystander. But when it got to the physical aspect side of things, and you were learning how to change the little tiny diapers or wash them and ultimately get ready to get their bottles ready for them and cleaning up anything you could do to help, they really helped me personally understand of how tough these little children are. That
Hmm.
we put them in this, we think that they're these little eggs that if we move them a certain way, they're going to crack. And it's nerve wracking, but they really allowed me to understand that it's going to be okay. I'm still really nervous about holding someone else's children, but when it comes to holding my own now and going through that time, I was very comfortable, and I don't think that happens without the support of the NICU. If I would have came home a couple of days after our kids were born from the hospital, and now you're trying to wash them and get them ready and so on, that's where grandparents and aunts and uncles and family friends, and my wife always says it takes a village, and that's where it takes a village.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to let you go. I know that you have a very busy schedule, but I appreciate you being here with us today and for sharing. I love your honesty around, sometimes those doctors and nurses who are most direct in their delivery, as hard as that news is to hear, I can totally relate to you saying that you then gravitated toward them down the road because, sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations in NICU. And as difficult as it is on everybody, I think on those delivering the news and on the family, that in the long run, I think it builds trust. And that's kind of what I heard you saying as you were telling those stories.
I've often thought about writing letters to doctors and nurses, that some in the very beginning that were really honest to you, and sometimes those are the things you didn't want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
but you needed to.
Yeah.
And they gave so much great advice over their time there. I cannot thank them enough, because without them, I don't know if my children are the success that they are.
Mm. Well, thank you again for being with us and for sharing so openly, and for sharing your schedule too, because I know that with your Canada's Got Talent win, they've kept you very busy. So I appreciate you coming on here and sharing about your family's journey with prematurity.
Thank you very much for having me on. Being a preemie dad is as challenging as it is. You look back on this later on in life, and I have my purple shirt that I wear every time of year when it comes around. So it's getting a little bit tight on me now, but I might have to get a new one. But yeah, no, I'm just, I'm really proud to have had that. As weird as this sounds, I'm proud to have had that experience, because it helped shape me into a better father. I do believe that those nurses and doctors helped change how I navigated through life.
Mm. Well, thank you. That's a beautiful note to end on, the attitude of gratitude. So thank you, Jacob, for being here. We have 2 more guests with us today, so don't go away. Our next guest is the father of Guinness World Record holders for the world's most premature twins and lightest twins at birth. It's incredible. Kevin Nataraja is the father of Adia and Adriel Nataraja, who were born at 22 weeks at Mount Sinai Hospital, Toronto in March 2022. They weighed 330 grams and 420 grams each. I just can't imagine. Adia and Adriel spent 161 and 167 days at the Mount Sinai Hospital NICU, respectively, and they were discharged home in August 2022. Kevin and his wife Shakina are strong advocates for family integrated care, micro preemies, and raising awareness about the viability of 21 and 22 weekers. Adia and Adriel recently became older siblings to their baby sister, Alyssa, who was born in November 2024. So thank you for being here today, Kevin, with the 3 little ones. You are very busy as well, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come and share your story with us.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Can I ask that you maybe share the presentation if you can? Perfect. All right.
Absolutely, and I'll give you the stage.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Leah. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Kevin. I'm honored to be a part of this Father's Day Preemie chat hosted by CPPEF. As a dad to my miracle twins, Adia and Adriel, as well as the recent addition to the family, Alyssa, who arrived in November last year. Special thanks to Fabiana, Leah, as well as the team for having me here and for hosting this event and for giving dads a space to share their stories. I think that's really meaningful and impactful. So Just a quick recap of my story. In 2022, my wife was admitted at 21 days to our local community hospital, where she was examined, and we were told that the twins would not survive birth, and even if they were to be delivered, they would not be viable, and they would be placed on my wife's chest and allowed to pass through comfort care. Obviously, we were devastated, a wave of emotions, and not knowing how to process even that announcement that was we were informed of. Through a miraculous turn of events, our request for a transfer to Mount Sinai was accepted. And once we got to Mount Sinai, again, we were told that if the twins were not delivered past the 22-week cutoff, there would be nothing that could be done to rescue them or resuscitate them. We were also carefully counseled on the significant risk of disability and the issues that may come up with gestation this early, and the extreme prematurity. But again, miraculously, and we thank God that both my wife's water broke right after midnight, and Adia and Adriel arrived shortly after. Adia first at 1:22 a.m. and her brother then 20 minutes later, Adriel, and they were immediately whisked away to the resus ward, where the NICU team began their work. So today I thought it would be meaningful to talk a little bit about the lessons I've learned through my early years in fatherhood. But before that, maybe wanted to show some of the pictures of our NICU journey and the kids coming back home. So let me just advance through these pictures. This is Adia when she was born, on the night she was born, right after being taken to the resus ward at 22-0, weighing 330 grams. You can see her skin was still not formed. I could actually see through and see her organs. This is Adriel, similarly bagged at 22-0, 420 grams. This was my first time holding both of them in the isolette. Again, very, very a wave of emotions as I experienced this. And this was a picture of my first tandem hold several months down the road in the NICU stay when a nurse kindly allowed us to do this. And yeah, some moments of bonding in the NICU. And this was on graduation day. So Adia on the left and Adriel on the right with their bravery beads, signifying all the various procedures that they went through during their 167-day stay in the NICU. And this is a very special picture because about 1.5 months into our journey, we found out that Adia and Adriel are in fact the world's most premature twins to survive, and also the world's lightest twins to survive. So they'd have 2 Guinness World Records, and that's such a blessing and incredible way for their story to be shared around the world and for it to have an impact. We continue to see their story having an impact in different parts of the world. So that's been really a blessing for us, my wife and I. And this is them celebrating their 3rd birthday in March. My mom is there off to my left, and our little addition, Alyssa, that my wife's holding. Adia and Adriel are doing incredible, and it's amazing to see the things they're doing and the exciting things they're doing as toddlers today. So anyways, I wanted to kind of shift attention and focus on, that's just a quick recap of the story. I just wanted to shift attention and talk about 3 things that I've picked up through my NICU journey, which have kind of shaped how I am as a dad and father. So the one thing is, one of the initial things I was exposed to in the first week at the NICU was the importance of becoming your child's advocate. So I recall the first nurse that I came in contact with who was watching our twins. She had said, make sure you're here for daily rounds, make sure you're able to present key information about your babies so that the medical teams can actually use this information to inform their care. And so so one of the things that we focused on was like, for me, I was a bit nervous, given all the wave of emotions that you're dealing with, being thrust into the NICU, just being able to like focus on other things that are new seem very difficult. But it was something that we came to really appreciate, and we saw immediate value from as we were taking note of progress in our children, minor things that they would do, shifting positions or improvements in their breathing and ventilation, and then being able to highlight these to doctors and nurses so that they can provide more focused and tuned care. And that was indeed what happened. And we were able to see the benefits of that, particularly also when my son was, his condition worsened during the stay and he had to be transferred to Sick Kids, which is another hospital. And at that point too, being able to extend that advice we've been given to be advocates for their care really played an important role. Outside of the NICU, I have found that this continues to be something that's really important, being a voice for our children and always focusing on what they're able to do. So I think we live in a world where there's a quicker focus on limitations and deficiencies and problems and issues. And my wife and I have made a concerted effort to always focus attention on what our children are able to do, the progress they're making, the developments. So whether it be medical related conversations with specialists or learning related conversations in different environments, we've always been focusing on what they're able to do, the new developments, and expressing that excitement on the progress that they're making and the potential that they have. So again, I think my advice here to fathers, to parents is just to be an advocate for your child through their early years and as they're growing up. You're in the best position to do that, and you're the one closest to them. You're the one observing them all the time. So that's not to be overlooked, and it's a significant thing to do. The second thing I wanted to focus on was emotional resilience. So when you're thrust into the NICU, you tend to experience a wave of emotions ranging from grief, sadness, anger, and then brief moments of happiness or hope, only to find yourself back in a cycle of sadness because there's been a new development, a new complication. I find also that as men, we're typically conditioned to be strong, hold it together, and stoic, and that's typically the expectation of men. And I found through the early days in the NICU that I just had to come to terms with my emotions, acknowledge those emotions, give time to process those emotions, and let it take its course. I think for some this could be achieved through like self-reflection, talking to other dads. For others, it could be connecting with their community support groups through friends and family. Personally, for me, when I was in the NICU, I found great comfort in stepping away into the family room where I was able to talk to other dads. I still recall my first week in the NICU, another dad sharing the same story and the same anxiousness and uncertainty on what was going to happen with his child. And we exchanged stories. And the first thing he asked me was, "Can I come and give you a hug?" And in that moment, it was during the thick of COVID, and I didn't even worry about any of that. And I took that hug because I needed it. So I think it's just really important to be in tune with your emotions, and just process it. I recall some days stepping away, taking a walk on the street, on Murray Street or University, just to get some fresh air and to reorient my mind. And if I take that back to life outside of the NICU and life at home, I now have 3-year-old toddlers who have budding personalities and meltdowns, as many of you might be aware. So on those difficult days when you're dealing with the stress of life, stress of work, and your toddler's having meltdowns and a newborn who's crying as well, it's important to really step back, assess the situation. What emotions are you going through? Knowing when to step away, maybe get some air, or knowing when to even rely on your partner for support. Also in reverse, knowing when to support your partner when they're having a difficult moment as well. So I think the key takeaway here is that as dads, we have an opportunity to really model how we react to different situations, and our children observe all of that, and they're going to take that in, and they have guidance, I'd say, or they have an opportunity to know how to deal with situations when they face it when they grow up. So this has been something, again, a lesson from the NICU that has been invaluable. And finally, I wanted to speak a bit on the third lesson, which is bonding. So as many of you know, when you step into the NICU, I think most of us are encouraged to speak to our babies while they're in the isolate, read to them, sing to them, pray to them, pray with them. And this was something my wife and I did for the 167 days we were in the NICU. We took lots of time away from work, and we were there every single day. We were there every single day, singing to them, reading to them, and praying for them, praying for the twins. And it's funny because while you're in there, I think Jacob spoke to this as well in terms of reading. You don't maybe sense what the benefit of it is right away because the baby's in the isolate and not reacting to what you're doing. But today I can confidently say that the things I did in the NICU continue to have a profound and lasting impact on my twins. For example, when Adriel, my son, he's having a meltdown and crying and inconsolable, the same songs that I sang to him in the NICU, when I sing to him today, immediately stops the crying, immediately calms him down. So I know for a fact that he did hear me. He did hear my voice. He did know the melodies I was singing, the songs I was singing. And when we read to them, they're so happy and comforted. So I think as dads, I mean, obviously it's a responsibility for both parents, but given the focus on fathers today, I think the time you spend with your kids is extremely critical and profound, has a profound impact on their lives. I think it's also very important outside of the NICU. I'm finding that we have to position ourselves at their level and see the world through their lens. Oftentimes as adults, we see things through our lens, and therefore we miss what the child is seeing or what the child is trying to do. So for example, when my son climbs on the table, as an adult, I'm focusing on why is he climbing on the table? Don't climb on the table. But then if I wait a bit, I'm able to see the world through his lens, that he's trying to grab or take something from the table, whether it be his water bottle or something else. And so there are several times where I've faltered as a dad, and I've failed to see the world through their lens, and that has caused me to react in ways that I shouldn't. And so this has been a really valuable lesson in that just stepping back, seeing the world as a child sees the world, and that gives you a chance to bond with them closer, and for them to be more closer to you as well and find safety in you. And I think these have been the three profound lessons I've taken from my NICU journey, as well as that continue to have an impact in my life outside of the NICU. I hope that's helpful to the dads listening as well as the families listening on this call. I'm super grateful for this opportunity that I've had to share this story, to share my story, and to share these lessons. And I think the role of a father in a child's life is significant and equally as important as a mom. And I think we have the opportunity to shape how our children grow and how the impact they have on society when they grow up. So I'll leave it at that. Happy to take any questions, Leah, from yourself or anyone else from the chat.
Thank you so much. I had to take a deep breath before I popped on because your wisdom and the comments we've been getting has just gotten me emotional and overwhelmed. I think your story is beautiful and powerful. And Juliet, who's one of our adult preemies who watches and often tunes in and comments, she said, preemies do remember NICU experiences somehow. The good things and sadly also the not so nice matters. The body remembers experiences. Juliet, thank you for sharing. I know she's also an advocate as an adult preemie herself. And so I appreciate that comment. Kevin, Sorry, go ahead.
And Leah, sorry, I just wanted to respond to that. I think that's a really good observation, and that's something we've noticed even with our twins, in that sensitivity to touch, sensitivity to sounds, exposure to new people, how that has an impact. And I think I would wrap that in as well as being an advocate and protecting your child, as you expose them to more of the world, right? Being that sort of first line guardian to protect them from all of those positive as well as negative memories that are sort of embedded in their minds. Yeah.
My first question is about you talked about that moment of being told, chances aren't good for even survival of your twins. And so I'm just wondering, what is it that for you and your wife that you wanted to advocate for them even right from the beginning?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, first it took time to process what was going on, the news that we had been given.
Yeah.
It didn't seem real to us. It felt like we were living in a nightmare almost in that moment.
Yeah.
So once we tried our best to collect our thoughts, the only thing that stood out to us was we have two babies inside my wife's womb. Their hearts are beating, and they deserve a chance at life. And if their hearts are still beating, there's no argument. They deserve their chance at life. And secondly, if they are to be born and there are the valid risks associated with extreme prematurity, we as parents take that responsibility to do whatever it takes to care for them and be their parents and to journey through that, right? So those are the two things I think that drove us. I'd also say separately, last but not least, a significant just our significant anchor was faith, just trusting that God would bring these two twins out and rescue them and give us like clinging to the hope that we'd all be family and be home one day. That was what kept us going.
Wow. You also had talked about emotional resilience, and I so appreciate that coming from a father perspective, because you're right. Oftentimes, dads are expected to be the strong ones and the support. And you had talked about what helped you in NICU, the peer support, the meeting other dads, helped you process your journey. But as a preemie parent myself, I know that our emotional journey doesn't stop at discharge. And so I'm just wondering, since you've been home, what was helpful in you processing this journey when you got home with your twins?
That's a good question, Leah. Thank you for that. I think when I got home, I struggled a lot in the initial months, years. I think as many preemie parents do, the biggest struggle is the feeling of not being able to relate to your closest friends, your community, and mainly from the perspective that they do not understand what you're going through, right? So I think it took some time on my reflection on my end to just process that, hey, this is my story. People are not going to understand. They have the best intentions, but they're going to try to understand. And also, what can I do to be a better father, and where can I seek advice and supports? So I'm finding that now, 3 years down the road from our NICU journey, being able to connect with other dads who have kids and journeying through the similar sort of season in life, and then also being able to occasionally touch in with dads I met during the NICU and see how things are going. Those have been helpful. And just like I go back to this one thing that someone told me while we were in the NICU. I think it might have been a nurse or another parent. Someday the number of good days outweigh the number of bad days.
Yes.
And I think we're very much living that right now, in that the good days have outdone the bad days or the rough days. And we're able to just focus on, like, how can we do better? How can we help our kids and build? Yeah.
Well, on that note, Kevin, thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing your story. And again, talking about the focusing on the good and the positive, and just the wisdom you brought today. It really felt, as you were speaking, that you were coming from a place of wisdom that will help other families in their NICU journey. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing so openly.
Thank you so much, Leah, and happy Father's Day to all the dads.
And it's important to note that, there haven't been a lot of studies done, particularly looking at dads in NICUs, but I did a quick PubMed search, and there are some interesting ones out there on the role of dads in NICU. And one came from one of our friends at CPBF, Dr. Marcia Campbell-Yo, and she has done a lot of research on postpartum depression. And so she published research that found that fathers' involvement in the care of their newborns in the NICU was significantly associated with fewer symptoms of postpartum depression among mothers. So, like so many other things CPBF shares and advocates for, fathers' involvement isn't just something that should be accommodated in NICUs and beyond. It should be actively promoted. And Fabiana added as well for us that Dr. Nancy Feely has also done a lot of work with NICU dads, if you want to do your own research on this. And so I think many dads would agree that we've come a long way with dads in NICUs. And I know in recent years, when I was working in our NICU, you would see more and more dads working remotely at the bedside. But when our final guest was in NICU, that was something that just wasn't done too often. In fact, seeing dads in NICU day after day was a rarity. So our next guest is Spiro Darris, and his son was born 16 years ago at 28 weeks and 5 days, weighing 1,080 grams. The family spent 1.5 months in the NICU at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, followed by a month in level 2. While in NICU, Spiro noticed that there was only one other father present whom he became friends with. Spiro's premature son, George, is now 16 and thriving. He plays all kinds of sports, gets good grades, and is currently attending St. Michael's College School as a grade 10 student. It's hard to believe how fast they grow up. So today, Spiros is going to share with us how he feels about fathers being present in NICU. Spiro, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. So, I remember everything. Dads were not there. I remember feeling alone as a father to a preemie child. I didn't even know what a preemie was, not in the literal sense, but I never expected it. And I remember the fear of having to go through it. When we first got put into the NICU, I remember looking around and I was surprised that the dads weren't there. There was one other father that was there on a regular basis. And I would see him day after day after day after day. And I could never understand why the dads weren't present. I felt that it was very, very important to be there to support your partner, your wife, your girlfriend, your fiance, just to be present, to give them the opportunity to pass it off to somebody else. They don't need to go through it on their own. We should be present as fathers. That's our job. I really don't. It was a very, very difficult time. It's not easy. I could sometimes still hear the alarms that you hear going off in the background. And that was 16 years ago. I can't believe how fast time has flown. It's just being present. Just be there. Be there to support. Be there to listen to the doctors. I remember I wanted to be a father more than anything in the world. And I felt like it was taken away when George was born prematurely. I felt like this isn't really happening. And when I absorbed the fact that it was happening, I remember the range of emotions. I remember the fear. I remember the anger. It was a surreal time, but it passed. And I look at him now 16 years later, and I can't believe how far we've come. When we were going through it, there was no support group at the hospital. There was nobody that would talk to the fathers in a way to let us know what was going on. Everything went through the mom. And thank God for the gentleman that I met, Frank, who we kind of leaned on each other. He had triplets. They're all fine now. They're around the same age as Georgie. It's just, I just want dads to know that you need to be present. You should be there. You should be your son or daughter's voice. You should be there to support your wife. I remember showing up at the NICU at 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, just so that my wife would have the peace of mind to know that someone was with our son, and that it gave her an opportunity to rest at home in her bed. I remember when we got him home, if you wanted to see him, you had to put on a hospital gown. It wasn't just about washing hands. It was about, you have to protect everything. But again, everything works out in the end. You just have to listen to the doctors and pay attention to what they're doing. Do the kangaroo care. As a father, we're limited in what we can do. We can't feed them. They need to be fed through their mothers, through the feeding tubes. All you can do is be there to support and just be there. Talk to them. Let them hear you. Be around. Let the doctors and the nurses know that you're a part of what that little baby is going through. Just be there. That's pretty much all I have. Just be present. Be present. Be there for your partner. Be there for your baby. Be involved in everything. Change those diapers. I remember the one thing that stands out in my mind the most is I remember every day that they would weigh him, 1 gram made the biggest difference. It was like something to celebrate. And eventually we got up to the point where he was discharged at 4 pounds and 6 ounces or something like that, 4 pounds, 8 ounces. And I remember going through the car seat test where he had to sit in the car, and he failed the first time. And I remember the disappointment in that, thinking that finally we're going to get home, but we have to pass this last test. And we tried it a few days later, and he passed, and we got him home, and haven't looked back since. That's pretty much it. If anybody's got any questions,
Thank you, Spiro, for sharing. I do have a question about George now and how you feel, if you feel that your time spent in NICU with him impacted your relationship at all, and how that is now.
So in the beginning, it was very, I didn't want to grab him. I didn't want to touch him. I was afraid that I would break him.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, as they grow, you realize that they're just like every other kid. They've just been here a little bit earlier, right? So I'm always going to have those memories and that picture of him being in the isolette. But at the end of the day, I don't want him to feel like he's special because he was a preemie. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's got a little brother, and I treat them both the same. There's no...
And how do you think you were able to make that transition? Because I know a lot of preemie parents, were kind of trained, and you even spoke yourself about when George first came home, people had to wear a hospital gown.
Yeah.
So it is making that transition from how we treat our preemies, because it is special treatment to be in NICU and then to come home. It's different than having a term baby. How did you make that transition for yourself to be able to go, okay, now basically you're just going to be that kid and grow up, and the treatment's the same as your younger brother?
Well, the first year was a lot of hospital visits and a lot of doctor's visits and stuff. And you realize that once you go, I remember RSV was a big thing. The RSV shot that he would have to take for the first year. And I didn't understand why he needed it. Again, when we were going through it, I never didn't know anything about it. The doctors explained everything, and our doctor explained everything thoroughly. And it was just, we would go to sick kids, I remember, and they would do an evaluation on him once a year for 2 years. And when we got the all clear, it was all clear. Not to say that we put our guard down 100%, but it was kind of like, well, they're telling me that everything is good, so it's good.
I want to talk a little bit about your relationship with the other dad who was in NICU, because when we spoke before, you had talked about how you basically supported each other in NICU and then even after NICU.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you could just talk about the importance of that connection, because you're right. Back then, you looked around and there weren't a lot of dads.
No, there weren't at all. Frank, when I got to the NICU, Frank was already there with his family. He was completely alone. It was basically two guys that were staring at each other across the room thinking, who's going to go and say hello first, right? Because I could see that he was dug in and he wasn't going anywhere. And he could see the same on my side, that I wasn't going anywhere. I was there every single day. I didn't miss one day, and neither did Frank. We were there every day through the NICU and through level 2, multiple times a day. Maybe we would take a break, but when we were all discharged, we did spend some time together. I helped him move, and he would come over, and it was just, he had said something to me when we were in the NICU. He said to me, "This place has changed you. You just don't understand how much it's changed you." And I didn't understand it at the time, but I got it as we were going through it. And it was good to have him, because I think if I didn't have him, then it would have just been me and my wife. And that's when it would become more difficult, right?
Yeah.
You need to talk to someone outside of your immediate circle. I found someone that's going through something similar.
How do you think it changed you?
It gave me a different perspective on life. It showed me how fragile life really is. Everybody, when you find out that you're pregnant, it's the most joyous time of your life, right? It's what we all want. We all want to become parents. And I remember when we realized what was happening, I remember questioning why it was happening. And then I remember the doctors and the nurses telling us, well, at 22 weeks, this is what you can expect. At 23 weeks, this is what you can expect. And they were going off, and it was just like this whole list. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't need to know any of that. Just tell me what I need to know, right? What do I do now? How did it change me? I think it just showed me that life's fragile. It's fragile.
Sandy wanted to know, if you were back in NICU, what could have been done that would have been more helpful for you?
I really don't know, because I think it depends on the individual also. Some people tend to want to, the fathers that weren't there, I don't think they were there because they didn't want to be there. Maybe they couldn't be there. Emotionally, maybe they couldn't keep it together. Maybe they just didn't want to believe what they were going through was real. There could be many reasons. For me, it would have just been easier and nicer if the nurses were more understanding of why we were there. It was like Jacob said, everything goes through the mother. The father was never really spoken to, unless you stuck your nose in and said, no, you're talking to me too. Right? And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And why do you think it's important for fathers to make themselves known in NICU?
Because you're the father. You're the father. We all signed up for this. Well, we signed up to be fathers, right? And it's basically, you need to be there. You need to listen. You need to know what's going on, because your wife might miss something. She's exhausted. She's going through an emotional roller coaster also. And something could be missed. And it's just important for you to be involved and to listen to everything. And like I said, change those diapers and do the kangaroo care. That's pretty much all we can do as dads. Right?
Yeah. I'm going to let you go, but my final question is, what advice do you have for those dads who are currently in NICU?
Just keep pushing forward. Just put your head down and keep pushing forward. Talk to each other. Make a little group. Get together. Go have a coffee together downstairs. Get away from the hospital if you can. That would be helpful also. Because you're living something that is very emotional, and it's good to disconnect for a little bit. Just a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for sharing today your wisdom, your experience, and even your journey now, because, you know, it even gives people hope to see a dad 16 years out. And I so appreciate you saying that the memories come back quickly even today, because I think oftentimes we think, oh, you were in NICU 16 years ago. But I was in NICU 12 years ago myself, and it doesn't just go away. There are things that bring us back, even with that.
I say to my son, kind of half joking sometimes, but maybe not really. I tell him the day he was born, he broke things in me that haven't been fixed, even today. The mental aspect of it is still there. You go back to it, right? Even though he's 100% good and everything is great. He's a great little guy, and he actually just got his driver's license a little while ago. So it's there for the parents. It's there for the parents. It never goes away.
Yeah, you're so right. Well, thanks again for being with us. I know that you had taken some time off work to be with us for a few minutes here. So I appreciate you even being outside. I'm glad it's not raining for you to be able to do this with us today. So thanks again, Spiro.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. What a beautiful time we've had together, just talking about the importance of dads and hearing their stories. They so bravely shared and vulnerably shared, and that's always such a gift for us all. If you want to rewatch this session, or if you missed part of it, you can always watch it again at canadianpreemies.org. We have our episodes up there, or on our YouTube channel. And while you're on our website, you're going to find many free resources and support options that we offer to help families on their journey. As a charitable organization, CPBF relies on the generous support of people like you. Your donations allow us to continue empowering families of premature babies every step of the way. And together, we can create a brighter future for all preemies and their families. And speaking of brighter future, I'm going to give a little plug here again for our gala that's taking place in November. It might feel like a long ways away, but it will be here before you know it. And it will be on November 6th. And so we need you to help us spread the word. We are selling tickets for this gala. We're looking for sponsors. So please check out our website to get more information and just help us make this a success. We're going to bring together families, compassionate individuals, businesses, advocates, community leaders, healthcare professionals, and philanthropists for a wonderful evening of connection and giving. The common thread through all that is that we care about preemies and we want to see them thrive in this world. Thank you for being a part of this community, for being here today. And we will see you next Friday again at 1 p.m. for another live edition